Well, this is a first for me. Trying to do a live here, and I know it's been a while since I've been on my channel, and just wanted to reach out to you guys and see how things are going. I was interested. One of the first things I want to talk about. I did a video last year on Boeing stock, and it's interesting that looking at the fundamentals of that company, just how messed up it was, and what a racket was going on there, just with the numbers, and then to see how that's played out here later on with the actual state of the company, whistleblowers, and everything else, right? So pretty cool to see that vindicated. Some of the other companies I've looked at have had other things go right or wrong for them. So, like one company I looked at was stock ticker O for Realty Income Corporation, and they were beloved in a lot of the circles that I was in. People really loved them, enjoyed what what that company stood for. And, I spent a lot of time on Twitter, or X as it's called. And sorry, my hat's all crooked. And a lot of the finance circles, some dividend investing gurus, so to speak, they were really big on, Realty Income Corporation, right? It just constant, nonstop talk about it. And then, of course, now, with rising interest rates and commercial real estate not being, um, the belle of the ball anymore, a lot of that has shifted. We don't hear about it anymore. A few people who do talk about it talk about, oh, it's not a great company. But ultimately, I mean, I think the fundamentals were there. I think it was just a victim of credit risk, right? I think it still has the ability to be a good company. And so, interesting. Been kind of fun to see how the story has played out on some of these companies that I've evaluated over the last few months. I need to go back and watch some more of my videos and really get an idea of, how on or off was I in terms of how well or poorly these companies have done. That being said, though, um, shifting, to kind of what I titled in this live. So, been an interesting week or two in the stock market. Really an interesting month with the return of Keith Gill, Roaring Kitty, or um, his Reddit username Deep Effing Value, and very very interesting storyline that's been going on with 3 years of just dead silence, no activity, nothing, and then just to kind of show back up and cause such a scene, right? And truthfully, I wasn't involved in the meme stock craze back in 2021 when all of that happened originally with GameStop. I was kind of one of those value investors that had to stick up my butt about, well, uh, GameStop's not a good company. And I'm looking at fundamentals and getting stuck on things like price earnings ratio. And, those are good metrics to use. But I decided the other day, I wanted to see what actually was the thesis behind um, his decision to pursue GameStop, right? And so I actually went and watched 34 hours worth of his videos this last weekend. And I was just very surprised, right? He's an extremely likable guy. He, just personable and enjoyable to listen to. Less nasally voice than I have, right? And just kind of just a life and energy to the way that he um, pursues his research in stock investing. And ultimately, the longer I watch, I tried to watch. There's two on his GameStop specific thesis, and then there's three that are titled like investing tools that he looks at, and really looking at where he does a lot of his research online, and then tying that into some of the spreadsheets and stuff that he had built. And honestly, I'm just incredible, doing way more with Google Sheets than a lot of people can accomplish with a Bloomberg terminal. And so, really just interesting stuff. I mean, I just couldn't look away. And I got this sense that, like, man, like, this is stuff I've never really like connected with a lot of people in terms of investing and stuff. And again, I'd really written him off as kind of just, like a lot of people, he's just kind of a goof, part of the meme craze, that kind of fringe Reddit cult with Wall Street bets and stuff. And ultimately, the more that I've researched into that community and stuff, the more I've realized, like, man, okay, like, the reason a lot of people writing them off are similar reasons to the reasons that I've given, right? And so, um, the more that I've actually dug into it, the more I realized, like, man, like, there was something there, to his thesis and to the thoughts that he had behind, digging into that company. And so I'd done some digging on my own as well, and just really impressed by Ryan Cohen, really impressed by, again, really pre 2021 GameStop, big short squeeze and all of that stuff. Who Keith Gill, kind of just as a person, as an investor, who he was and the type of research he was doing. Um, a lot of respect for that. And so, something I'm more interested in. I mean, I think if you've been paying attention at all, that GameStop, it looked like, and even I really thought with, AMC really like shot a lot of people in the foot because, right when this initial rally started about a month ago, AMC went ahead and just issued flooded shares on their stock, which is great for the company, right? Gets them a lot of money. And it looked like GameStop was going to do the same thing, and it was really going to hurt a lot of investors by diluting their shares. And they just finished the last part of their 75 million shares that they um, pumped out. And truthfully, like, watching that stock kind of come down as it was being diluted, but leveling out right there just above $23, right around 24, $25, and then bouncing back at the end of today, up to around the $30 mark, was really impressive. I mean, just the sheer amount of demand for shares of the company to be able to absorb that 75 million shares and to be able to maintain where it's at. And of course, I'm doing this on June 11th. And so, not tomorrow. Today's Tuesday, so tomorrow is Wednesday. Next day's Thursday, and I believe it's Thursday that they have their annual meeting on the 13th. And so I think that's going to be kind of a telling day. The way that Ryan Cohen comes out, what he talks about, how he addresses shareholders, it's going to have a big impact on the nature of that company's stock. And of course, as a long-term investor, I want to look at, I don't necessarily care what happens this next week of investing, right? But I do want to see positive things going on. So naturally, it should probably go up in the next week if things are going well. And so, want just hoping, right? So I guess disclosure, I did buy a couple shares, but I mean, nothing crazy. I don't have a ton of money to put into the market right now. And even if I did, I don't put a whole lot into speculative bets, which really, despite the positive things that I've seen, I still view GameStop as kind of a speculative bet because there's not a track record of increasing profits and success, right? I think that's I think that's something ultimately that you need to see with an investment before you put money into it, is there's that track record of success of growing margins and growing profits and decreasing expenses, showing that the company is performing better over time and that it's a good investment. GameStop hasn't quite shown that. There's a lot of promise to it. One of the big things I noticed now, they raised that additional $2 billion through these 75 million shares, they have $4 billion in cash just sitting there ready to invest. If you read their 10Q for um, this last quarter, um, preceding the shareholder meeting, the 10Q mentions that they're setting up a special investment committee. Basically, it'll be Ryan Cohen, and it'll take two board members and any other ancillary staff that they need, and advisors in order to make investments on behalf of the company. A lot of people have speculated, that's going to involve, um, mergers and acquisitions and all these other things. Ultimately, I mean, it really is just looking at investments. So maybe they um, take a stake in other companies. I don't know that they're necessarily going to buy other companies, though. That could be a good idea if um, it's got a track record of profitability and it's going to put a sizable um, dent in their own financials. But the other thing that it mentioned was that, okay, we're setting up the special committee. Ryan Cohen's in charge of that, and Ryan Cohen's interesting. I think the reason that he's special and part of this whole mix, um, if you go and read his story, one, just on recent news today, he was cleared of the charges, of any kind of manipulation on Bed Bath and Beyond stock. He didn't own enough percentage of that company, anyways. Not to mention, it just was kind of baseless. And so, that being said, um, you read his story. I mean, just from a young age, entrepreneurial spirit, able to start the company Chewy from the ground up, just built it, went toe to toe, head to head with Amazon, um, and really just, I think, lost because of, just the size, David and Goliath kind of thing. We expect Davids to win, but ultimately, in the business world, Goliaths tend to kind of swallow things up. Some people say it's because of customer service that Amazon was able to outdo them. I don't know about that. I think it was just the nature of resources available to Amazon. Um, and so that being said, um, I think Ryan Cohen, is someone who is able to compete just from the ground up. Now he's got the resources available to him. He's someone who doesn't take a salary from his own company, but is a wise investor, and I think is going to be able to put GameStop continually on the map, to build on the brand, build it into something. And so, kind of tying back to what I said, that track record of success isn't there. And so watching what the company's doing, it's still a speculative play because we don't know what they're going to do. We don't know what the news is that we're buying. We don't know really the nature of the investment you're getting out of it. We're recognizing, okay, there's good management. Hopefully, there's an investment thesis available to us, but we're still waiting on the second part. We're still waiting for it to be put into action. We're still waiting to see what the market conditions and you know whatever ancillary events happen outside of GameStop's control. And so that's why I think it's still speculative up until this point. Once we see through shareholder meeting, through actual implementation of strategy, what they do, then we'll know if it's a good investment or not. Of course, at that point, once you start to see results, then you'll see, price action, those kinds of things. And so I think at that point, it doesn't mean it's too late to get in. It just means, if you speculated early and it went well, then you speculated and you won. If you speculated early and it doesn't go well, you speculated. Hopefully, you only did what you could lose. And so I think GameStop is one of those companies that's still not a pure value play. It's still not a pure investment play. I still think it falls within the realm of speculation. But I mean, I think there's a foundation there. I think there's substance to it. I like to watch a lot of documentaries on fraud and scams and things like that. It fascinates me, just the way that people can be duped, into thinking something's a good investment. And I think part of that stems out of my own fear, that I would be duped or that I would fall into something like that. Trying to be wise, but also just, I don't know, it's interesting, right? And so one of the ones I watched recently was MoviePass. It's called MoviePass Movie Crash. It's on um, HBO Max right now. It just came out. And it's really interesting. I thought it was going to be kind of boring or dry or not really have a lot to it. But ultimately, what happened with that company, um, there's kind of two factors to it, right? Like one factor was there's actual, the actual founders who were in the company. Um, you really listen to them, you recognize like they had something, but they were actually forced out at kind of a pivotal moment in the company history to where the red flags they were raising on the issues that the company had were not only being ignored, but they actually were forced off the board and out of the company. Um, and so I think there, I used to look at MoviePass and think, well, like obviously it was a failed concept. Obviously it was going to lose money. But ultimately, I think after watching that and listening to the founders and the people who had a chance to right the ship, there was substance there. It had the potential to be a good investment. Of course, second half of that is two big main guys. Ted Farnsworth and Mitch Lowe ended up being the CEO and the president of the company. Ted for sure, con man through and through. Mitch, I think, as well, wasn't on the up and up, if you know what I mean. And so, but you listen to their interviews and stuff, and it's just this grandiose story. And oh yeah, we've got a plan. Oh yeah, we've got a plan. It's just constantly trying to sell something, but not actually seeing anything happen. And I think the times that something is the most a scam is when there's the most narrative being pushed. I'd watched a Shark Tank video a while back where Mark Cuban just roasts this guy because he said, he can tell within the first like minute of, not even that, maybe 15 seconds of a pitch, whether there's something there or not, because when there's not something there, it just goes into preach, 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 preach. Whereas when there's something there, it's just here's the substance. This is what it is. And so it either clicks or it doesn't. And the more that someone has to sell it to you, the more someone has to preach, a narrative to you, the more likely that there's not substance there. And I think that's ultimately what MoviePass fell into, was preach, lack of substance, no real game plan. And there was some fraud that happened too, right? Saying there was a game plan for a few things. They lied about contracts that were being signed and all this money they were going to make off of data and all of this stuff. But ultimately, there was an inflection point in the company where good management was forced out. And of course, shareholders didn't really know a lot about that, about what had happened, about Stacy Spikes and Hame. I can't remember his last name, but the two of them getting pushed out. And so, that's the worry, of course, that again, speculation into actual investment opportunity. MoviePass had the opportunity to move into that investment class, but ultimately the people who needed to be there to do the right things were pushed out. And I think that's the worry with GameStop is, does Ryan Cohen succeed and actually manage to pull off what he says he was going to do? So, um, anyways, I mean, that's the main stuff I wanted to talk about. I had actually set up an X Spaces, and I don't have a ton of followers and stuff, and so no one really showed up to it, which is fine, And my house is pretty noisy, and my wife's gone, and so I was like, well, I got an opportunity to kind of sit and talk, and I haven't videoed in a while, and just wanted to kind of put myself back out there and say hey and remind you guys that I hadn't totally gone off the map and maybe I can hopefully do some more of this in the future. It's finally getting to a point. I changed jobs last year, right when I was really starting to get my videos going and stuff, and um, got to a point where I didn't have time to split between trying to, finish building our house and all this stuff, and also trying to build the channel and all of that. So glad to be back and glad to have a chance to talk to y'all. And I guess I kept it under 20 minutes, so that's actually pretty good for me. I'm usually the more talkative. So if you liked it, appreciate it if you'd like it. The video, if you'd subscribe. I don't know if there was a lag or not between video and audio. But if you made it this far, I really appreciate you. I appreciate taking the time to listen, and hopefully I didn't make a total fool of myself. But that's why I titled it Amateur Hour, because what do I know? I'm just some guy in Oklahoma. So, anyways, appreciate you, and hopefully there'll be a next time, and I'll get to see you there.